The lineup here features Vorb and Vlad. And what we have is some more dark ambient in the abruptum-esque madness here. One 17-minute track beginning with the sound of tortured growls, moaning, sickly rasps, and some sort of dissonant violin. With this and all the other non-metal LLN stuff, you have to keep any expectations out. Don't look for song structure that isn't there. Just shut your mind off and experience the nightmare. Fun fact on the cover here. This bootleg here has a picture of May Knock on the cover, who was never actually in this band. Oh, when bootlegs go wrong. Now here we have a demo performed entirely by Lord Akon Kitra, who's a very prominent figure in the LLN scene. And while this is typically labeled as dark ambient, there are black metal elements here. This demo starts, and I'm hearing something that I would call early depressive black metal, with the vocal style especially. A lot of those bands would use later on a very depressing guitar drone. There's actually a lot of guitar on this demo, and it's pretty much the usual LLN dissonant droning repetitive style. Halfway through, you would actually get some awesome icy riffing that would sound great in a traditional black metal song. I wouldn't really call this demo dark ambient, but more experimental depressive black metal. Lots of cool ideas here, and it's easy to see why it's one of the more loved LLN recordings. This demo here has Vorb handling everything, and this is the second of 4 demos, which the LLN diehards tend to love all 4, in fact. Everything is handled by Vorb, like I said, including that percussion, which no actual drums were used. Apparently he used non-musical objects. I actually think that is kind of cool, since I'm sure he had access to a drum set or a drummer of some sort. So I do like this demo. It is one of the most raw recordings I think I've ever heard. There's too much reverb on pretty much everything. It sounds like a chaotic mess, but I'm sure that was all intentional, and it does give it quite a bit of unique charm. A lot of the riffs are audible, and they are good riffs, usually a dissonant kind of thrash type riff, or your standard off-kilter LLN black metal riff. Vocals are sinister and nasty with lots of variation, high-pitched shrieks, evil raspy whispers. I find myself drawn to them most of the time. The last track is a 10-minute ambient track that I personally think could have been left off. This demo had Wad Drakenstein on drums, bass, and vocals, Vorlock Drakenstein on guitars, backing vocals. First off, don't be a poser and ignore this demo because of the shitty review on Metal Archives. These are the same 2 guys who brought us Vlad Tepes and Black Murder. This demo is primitive even by LLN standards, but it is black metal to the core. It's raw, of course, and incredibly chaotic. It's sloppy, sure, but why would you expect differently? Vlad's vocals are great as always, and the riffs are pretty audible sounding, punky, and Death Crush era mayhem sounding. This is for those who have the early 90s black metal spirit only. 27 minutes of black metal chaos. Feasts had Vorb on drums, Lad on guitars, and Vorlock on bass and vocals. I mean, with a lineup like that, clearly this is one of the best recordings in LLN history. This is the 3rd and final release from Black Murder, which is a shame. One of my favorites of the LLN overall, I'd say. You have the guys from Vlad Tepes and Vorb on drums, so of course it's fucking good. I like the songs here as much as the excellent Promo 94, and this was a blueprint of what you would hear in some of the great French black metal bands that would come a little later, especially in the raw, cold, melodic riffs, which are quite excellent, by the way. This is a band that even non-LLN enthusiasts should be looking at. I'll also make a note that in my previous video, I said that the Promo 94 from Black Murder was the only thing they ever did. I knew right then and there that it wasn't, because I've had Feasts for a long time, so I don't know why I said that. That was a mistake, but anyways, here's a correction. 1996 was an intense year for the LLN. It was, as far as documentation goes, the final year these bands would be what we would consider active. Volume wise, it is not quite on par with 1995, and some would say that 96 was the best year, but for me, it's kind of hard to say. 95 had some key genre defining releases, but so did 96, such as the Belcatre demo, the fan favorite Akon Kitra demo, the soul demos by Sevis and Suze Vortre, the oddity that was the Torture demo, and Vlad Tepes released a demo that I've always liked. Maynok had left the scene or had been ousted from the scene entirely at this point, and the lack of any mutilation material is strongly felt, as that was kind of a linchpin in the LLN scene, if you ask me, and Maynok himself was more than important. To me, the lack of Black Murder and Torgeist is also felt. However, this was a year with plenty of music from the scene, and not every year can be the best. This demo features Vorlock on vocals and bass, one of the stranger black metal releases from the LLN. In this band, Vorlock chose to use a bass and vocal approach with what I believe to be a drum machine. Maybe he got the idea after hearing Necromantia from Greece. It's sloppy in typical LLN fashion, and in my opinion, it doesn't work very well. Vorlock's vocals are as deranged sounding as ever, but this is one of my least favorite LLN releases. Also, the lyrics are all based on pedophilia, which to me is a pretty stupid way to be shocking. So that might be my opinion, and I wouldn't call this mandatory listening, but it is kind of a unique little demo, and it does definitely have its fans, just not something that I reach for often from the LLN. This demo had Vlad on drums and Vorlock on guitars, bass, vocals, and organs. This demo starts out with a droning, eerie sounding dirge, very much like a soundtrack to some black and white horror movie. It's a cool opener. Track 2 is where everything starts to come together with simplistic drumming and guitar riffs with some barely audible moaning before going into some heavier sounding riffs. Very cool demo. I actually enjoy this one. Maybe not quite one of my favorites. I don't think it'd even be a top 5, but again, like most of these demos, it is a fan favorite if you ask the right people. This demo has Lord Akon Kitra playing everything like he typically does on all his demos. And it starts off with a pure ambient track, droning and repetitive. I'm not sure if these guys have the ability to loop stuff or if they had to play everything manually. Track 2 has a repetitive guitar riff, very melodic and very melancholic. This demo sounds a bit like a soundtrack and has to have influenced some depressive black metal bands at some point. Unique ambient music because of the inclusion of guitars. This band is also a fan favorite among the LLN fanatics. This demo has Akon Kitra on guitars and vocals, and Vorb on guitar, vocals, and drums. This is the only recording I have from Belcatre, which is a shame since it is one of the best LLN bands. Definitely a fan favorite, and one of the only, if not the only, LLN bands still allegedly together. This was their 4th demo and 5th release overall at this point, and it was the last thing they would do until 2015. This seems to be their most liked demo. Belcatre was mostly Vorb's baby. Akon Kitra was actually considered a session member. This is one of the longest LLN recordings, by the way. It plays like a full length. One of the more raw recordings I've ever heard, to be honest, which is both frustrating and kind of intriguing. And it definitely gives it a thick layer of mystique. The drums are mostly a bassy blur, and the same goes for the riffs, but oddly enough, the guitar solos are usually pretty audible. With Vorb and Akon Kitra on vocals, you can't really ask for much more in that department. I always felt like the LLN guys were paying attention to what was happening in Norway around this time, and this does remind me of early, like, demo era Emperor a little bit, mixed with the French dissonant riff style that bands like Deathspell Omega would use later on. As far as musicality and composition skill, and like I said, the solos are completely audible. The drums are simple and pounding, no fancy fills or double bass. You should know by now not to expect that anyways. This would be their last demo, and Ricard Productions repressed it on all formats, so you should be able to find it, along with the split they did with Vlad Tepes, which is largely considered the LLN's finest hour. This was another project of Vorlock of Vlad Tepes, among the other bands he was in as well. And you had Vlad on session drums. And this is another of the straightforward black metal bands from the LLN. No experimentation, just no frills, pure black metal. This is black metal for purists, fans that prefer Death Crush over anything else Mayhem did, and this is one of the better demos from the scene. It's raw but not unlistenable and quite riff-oriented. Some of the riffs are pretty punky, which is common in early black metal, of course. As with the others, this demo would be highly influential to French bands that would come afterwards. This demo has Vorlock on bass and vocals, and Vlad on vocals, guitars, and drums. Vlad Tepes are quite possibly the most loved LLN band. Respect in the underground goes beyond simple LLN adoration. Vlad Tepes' music is the true meaning of cult when it comes to black metal. This is the only demo I own, and it's a classic one, but they all are, really. Those that can be found, at least, some of them are obviously a little bit tricky to acquire, even bootlegs. The sound here is as raw as it gets, while still being audible. The dual vocals by Vorlock and Vlad are rotten and hateful, perfect by black metal standards. The guitars are fuzzy and distorted from the production, and the riffs are kind of buried, so you have to work a little to dig them out. The melodic solos are great and audible. The drums are simple and pounding. And like a few of the other LLN black metal releases, Drakkar Productions re-released this some years back, so you probably can find it fairly easily. This demo has the Black Lord Belith Rim and Vorlock on everything. All musical aspects. I don't know if I could say instruments. This is kind of an ambiguous demo. And I've always said that Abruptum had to have been an influence that the LLN would draw inspiration from, and on this demo, it's never been as obvious. The Abruptum guys had recordings that were allegedly them torturing each other, whether you believe it or not, and recording it. Whether torture was actually happening or not, it's unknown, and it most likely wasn't. On this demo here from Torture, allegedly, the sounds of a person being tortured while the torturers laughed during the process. As with Abruptum, I highly doubt that it actually happened, but it is now a thing of legend. And oddly enough, this is one of my favorite LLN ambient recordings, and I find it oddly enjoyable. It does sound fairly disturbing and very horror movie-esque. Despite the vocal sounds, I like the simple synth drones. In fact, I think it could have used a little more of that, a little more balance, actually. Even so, the horror fan in me enjoys this probably more than it really deserves. What's up, guys? You thought you could avoid my face? Guess not. Anyways, I just wanted to do a quick addendum to this video, I guess you could say. I'm just going to show a couple of things that weren't included in either of the videos because I acquired them after or during, so I didn't really get a chance to use them. Such as this 1993? I think it's 93. 94, actually. This Moebat compilation. It's considered a compilation, but is actually just a reworked version of their debut demo from 93, I think it was. They're decently done. I've shown this before, I think, actually, on this channel when I got it. So, Moevat were a cool, probably, one of the better, more loved ambient bands from the LLN. I dig it. And then I also got this, not really considered part of the LLN necessarily. It is from that time period, and it is from LLN members, allegedly. As with a lot of LLN, there is, there is some hearsay about this. So what I'm talking about is this a Neon demo from 1995. Now, a Neon would actually go on to have different members, and they would actually have a decently lengthed kind of black metal career.
However, this is not black metal. This is like an acoustic folk demo. This is from '95. So it is said that this was the Vlad Tepes boys, those two guys. They deny it. They say that they produced it, but they did not. They're not the musicians on the album. It is pretty much generally accepted that, yeah, it was those two guys. Why they can't just admit it, I don't know. It's not a bad album or a bad demo, actually. It's pretty cool, folky acoustic music, which was a thing that black metal musicians would actually go on to do. It would become kind of a popular thing later on, but maybe in '95, maybe not quite. I imagine they were inspired by Ulver, who did the black metal album, and then they would, follow that up with an acoustic folk album. My guess is they were influenced by that, but I don't know. So yeah, this is there's the title right there. It's pretty cool. This is hard to find. There's a 7-inch vinyl pressing, there's a CDR pressing, and then there's this tape. It's not easy to get, but it's a nice piece of, in my opinion, LLN history. Then we've got the split album, bootleg vinyl between these two bands, who I already talked about, but I just thought I'd pull this out anyways. It's got the Suzvortre, and obviously I'm not going to try pronouncing that. All it has on it is the Suzvortre 96 demo, and then one of the demos by this band. Maybe the only demo, I can't remember if they had multiple, but that's all it is. I showed them on tape, I have it, so I thought I'd show it. Now the last thing I'm going to show is really, really fucking cool. Having an actual original copy of this is probably near impossible. I don't know how many were made. I just printed this off from a PDF file online. So I believe it was May Knock made a zine for the LLN. I don't know if it's been confirmed that it was him, but I think it's pretty much, his name appears in this more than anyone else's. So they called it, for what it is, they really did a good job. It's called the Black Plague Zine. Now, you'll notice a lot of the band names going along the sides. I never knew about this, and I still don't quite know what is up with this, but you got Mortis on there. I don't know if I don't think he's covered in this. I don't know if maybe they, for a short time, they considered him part of their scene. Would be kind of weird since he was Norwegian, and all the LLN guys were France. They all lived in the same county, so I don't understand. I've asked around, I've asked people this, and no one seems to have a concrete answer, which is not unusual for the LLN guys. There's a lot of unanswered questions. But I'll go ahead and just kind of, I was going to take pictures of all these and just do like a slideshow, but I didn't. So that was the cover. Page 1. Page 2. Like I said, for a couple of kids, this is really fucking well done for 1990, was it 95 or 96? Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. Page 20. Page 21. And that's it. So obviously, even putting these two videos that I've done together, this is not a comprehensive, and I said it in the first one, not a comprehensive LLN video. It's just kind of a primer. Maybe if you're not too familiar, you want to get into the LLN, you don't really know too much. I just covered the demos that I mostly have. Maybe I'll do a part 3 someday, because there are a couple odds and ends that I actually couldn't find that weren't part of the LLN, but they're LLN related. And, maybe I'll do a video, covering the other demos that are maybe a little less known, a little less popular, that I don't have. Maybe I'll just do a video like that to, really bring it all together. 3 episodes that would make this a comprehensive series. So I guess I can't say I'm not going to come back with a third episode. It'll probably be a while, but it's an idea I might kick around. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. So, anyways, yeah, you can find that Black Plague zine. You can find a PDF online where you can download it. You can print it off like I did if you want. It's easily found. So check that out. It's an interesting read. And anyways, I appreciate everyone that watches this. Definitely comment and talk to me about it if you're a fan of any of these bands, or if you're new and maybe you want to check them out. Let's get some conversation going. Anyways, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Louis says hello, and we will talk soon. Cheers.